So for the Panasonic FZ1000, these are the settings that I recommend. And then, let me show you, we're going to go over to Davinci Resolve now. And this is the project with my Panasonic FZ1000 footage. And here's what I do. They're the next part of the video that's very important. The final step for exporting your footage in Davinci Resolve for YouTube. Not the same story if you're not going to YouTube, but if you're going to Vimeo, it's going to be different. But I'm just going to talk about for the FZ1000, there's something really easy to do to create what I call a YouTube export settings, and I'm going to show you what I do also in the export settings here. And I do not use the YouTube preset. Absolutely not. I will not use the YouTube preset in Davinci Resolve anymore. I always use H.264 master. I'll talk about that in a second. And especially for certain cameras that have 8-bit files that you don't want to be compressing them over and over again. Okay, so let's talk about the settings real quick though. With these settings here, I've got two settings. One of them is called, this, you see them right here. The one on the left is called, I call it my shadow dip. YouTube shadow dip, okay? And then over here, the second thing, I call this my YouTube color bump. Now you can kind of guess what the color bump is. You can see there's a lot of extra color here. Go back to a little bit bigger image. You see that this image is a bit too colorful. But when you go to YouTube, it comes down to a realistic point. All right, as of 2024, June 1st, okay? Well, first of all, hopefully they don't go back and change all the videos people have tweaked to make it work. But the point is, YouTube, when you upload something, as of right now, it's not going to look exactly the same as far as your color and your saturation and all that. But it also pulls some of the contrast out. So the shadow correction, and I will do another, I'll put it in the description what these numbers are. But the shadow correction, I'm going to point to here. If you see my cursor, I'm sorry I'm not zooming in with this screen. But the primaries here have what I call a shadow dip. And the shadow dip is very simple. And I'm just going to say exactly what it is. Go to the bottom here, and you see color boost, shadow highlight, all this. Under shadow, which is SHAD, okay, type in negative 12.3. You are pulling the shadows down because you know that YouTube is going to take some of that contrast out. It's going to lift them, unfortunately. All right. Now let's talk about the color bump. The color bump is under SAT versus SAT. So there's a list right here. When you are correcting it, you see this list. It says custom, hue versus hue, hue versus SAT, hue versus loom, loom versus SAT, SAT versus SAT, and SAT versus loom. Okay, you want to be on SAT versus SAT. That's saturation versus saturation. And when you're on there, I do it by dragging. So what we're doing here is you drag like this, and you go to 1.23. Then I go to the other side, and I go to 1.23. Do you see that? So when you do both sides, that is the key. So shadow dip of negative 12.3, and then color bump under SAT versus SAT of 1.23.